Hello, friends, followers, and fellow realtors. Welcome to the Waves podcast created by the Highland Lakes Association of Realtors. My name is Matthew Butter, and I will be your host today. We designed this podcast for realtors to help innovate, educate, and elevate their real estate practice, one ripple at a time. Our goal is to help navigate the waves of the industry and dive into local trends, topics, and beyond by interviewing experts that add value to our mission. Think of us as your proverbial life jacket to keep you afloat in these crazy times. We hope to make a splash in your day. Hello and welcome to the first ever Waves podcast here at the Highland Lakes Association of Realtors. My name is Matthew, but I'll be your host today. We're so glad to start this new podcast here to help realtors, affiliates, consumers learn about how we provide services and our talents to the Highland Lakes areas. Buyers, sellers, realtors. I'm so blessed to be a part of this podcast. Got a great guest today. Will Gilliam is our guest. How you doing? Welcome.
Doing great. How you
We
doing?
got our drinks in hand. We're ready to go.
Dilly.
I'm so excited. So this is going to be kind of like a brag sheet. This is your life, Will Gilliam.
Good.
Okay?
Scary.
So brace yourself. It's going to be fun. Grew up in San Antonio.
Yep.
Went to school at Texas A&M and UTSA.
Yep.
So have a hard time.
I'm a mind divided.
Longhorns.
It's hard to get excited
Aggies.
about Roadrunners. But hey,
Yeah.
they're good now. They have a good football team.
They're actually a really good team.
Aggies, Texas, and A&M's going to be playing this year. Since
It's gonna be good.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be epic.
I became a registered nurse. Was
Yep.
a nurse for 2 years.
2.5 years at a psychiatric hospital. Wow. Yeah, I went to nursing school to go to nursing anesthesia school so I could pass gas, make a lot of money. Met my wife in nursing school. She goes, "We're not moving." I thought, but I wanted to pass gas, make a lot of money.
There you go. Your wife's Deb. You have one
Right.
daughter and two granddaughters.
Correct.
Awesome. And you became a registered nurse, then transitioned to pharmaceutical sales as a rep for several companies.
Right.
You finished with Bristol Myers Squibb.
Correct.
In neurosciences. Is that right?
Right.
Tell
Yep,
us
yep.
about that journey.
You know, when I was in as a registered nurse, I'd see these drug reps come by, and I'm thinking, what kind of cush gig do they have? You know, I'm dealing with crazy people trying to keep, bashing their heads with chairs and stuff. And I'm like, I could do that job. And then I had this friend. I get to know this guy hanging out in the pharmacy. He goes, "Man, pharmaceutical sales is where it's at." Make a long story short, I answered an ad, little teeny tiny no-name company. They took a chance on me. Got in. Once you're in, you can navigate. But that was back in the 80s when it wasn't a female-dominated world. Don't get me wrong. I love females. But back then, it was just kind of open to anybody. And so once you get in, you can navigate around. And, wow, it was great. No.
So that was first part of your life right there. And you moved to the Highland Lakes in 2002.
2002, part of a layoff. I was laid off, but I had my job.
Same with me.
My boss was like, "Hey, aren't you building a lake house at Lake LBJ?" And I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Then you're still employed, but you don't have a position yet. But there's a hospital rep position in Temple." I don't want to go to Temple. She goes, "You want a job?" I go, "Yeah, I want a job." So I go, "Can I drive?" So 75 miles as a bird flies to Scott and White. So I had the job there for 2.5 years, got laid off. 6 weeks later, they brought me back. 2 years later, they laid me off for the last time. And now I'm out here in God's country at the lake, living the lake life before I even knew what lake life was.
And you bought a real estate agency in 2008?
I bought, it's funny. A friend of mine worked in there and they were closing. People that have been around real estate a long time know Edna Cheatham. She was awesome. And so she goes, "I'm closing." And I said, "I'll buy it." I was just half kidding. Because 10 years earlier, I heard a story on the Wall Street Journal said, if you're in the corporate world, 50% chance you're going to get laid off. So I thought, man, what can I do? I'll start working on my real estate license. Because I used to joke, realtors, those are guys who can't find jobs. And God had a sense of humor. 10 years later, so I took courses. I had 3 courses. And I was just bored. I thought, man, this isn't me. This is not me. But then it hit. And I'm like, now.
How long did it take before it hit?
Man, so when I got laid off, I thought,
I'm a new realtor, and I really want to
so
pro insights.
Oh, you mean like before I started running, or
before business started picking up?
Oh,
and you weren't bored anymore. And
okay. So you're working with people. I had my broker left. She goes, "Hey, I'm around, but I'm not here to mentor you." And so I had 2 old guys in their 80s, 80-ish, almost 90. they didn't even have computers. I mean, come on. And so it took about 2 years, but I was OJT. I mean, I was the owner. I bought a real estate company.
On the job training for those.
Yeah, on the job training. So I bought a real estate company. A month later, I get my license. That's faith. So that actually, that's just me.
I love it.
Crazy.
I love
Nobody does that, but we'll get them. So I bought it, and I thought, man, and I had this thing in my mind. I'm going to be the best realtor because I knew a lot of realtors in San Antonio. I couldn't stand them. Why? Because they were deal tours. They were all about the deal. Deal. And then once the deal is done, they're moving on to the next deal. I thought, I'm not going to be that guy. And so I mean, it's like, man, what do I do now? I thought, I mean, I was up here. Remember, I came up to the board. I thought, okay, I'll get some training here. And I just kind of got to know everybody, right? And they said, hey, you need to be on a committee. I'm like, nah, I don't like committees.
By the way, just real quick, Ray, the people that we're talking to, we have the great Josh Gunter here helping us with the technology aspect, and our CEO, Miss Luann Sadler, here helping us and sponsoring this. So we're very thankful to have y'all. Thank you so much.
Yep.
We've got a great group here at the Highland Lakes Association of Realtors that support everyone involved, realtors, affiliates, board members. So it's pretty awesome. So carry on.
All right. So this is how important the boards are, the board. So I didn't know squat about real estate and all that. And so I came up to the board every day, hung out and learned. Realtors would come in, they say, hey, this is a good guy.
Sounds like my story a little bit, Luann.
It's like, this is a good guy. This is a good girl. Get to know them. So I got to know them. Then I joined a GRI class. Couldn't even spell GRI, but I'm taking it. And so it was the board that got me involved. I mean, the board, they were like, hey, man, you need to do some things. Within a year of me being a realtor, I was a director. I was a director for 2 or 3 years and got roped into vice president, president.
Yeah, I see you're 2015 president.
Yeah. The point is, the board, not knowing what to do, where to go, I hung out the board, and the board guided and directed me, introduced me to people, because in our real estate world, it's all about people. And at the board, those are people that know what's going on. And I just saw an opportunity. I took advantage of it.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think there's so many people that don't spend enough time here, and they don't network, they don't come to events. And I wanted to just enthrall myself with everything that was the Highland Lakes Association of Realtors. I'm on the Community Outreach Committee and was involved with several mixers and different things that we're doing. And it really helped me learn who's who in the Highland Lakes. And it sounds like that was a big
That was a
thing for you
huge thing, because I was at the board every day because I just felt comfortable, like, I can't really screw up here. And I wasn't really meeting a lot of people as far as buying and selling, but they guided me. And then, so, you're saying, how did it happen? So I had a friend that was working at the church, in Kingsland. He said, hey, man, I just heard that this lady's going to sell her house. I know her. So I ran to her house, just said, hey, I'm brand new and blah, blah, blah. And I go, hey, and she goes, well, you can list our house. So my first house that I listed was a waterfront. It was like 220,000. Now it's probably like 900,000. But it was just like, once you got to connect. You got to connect with people. Right. You got to connect. When I got on the board as a director, I didn't know anything about it, and I got to know people and the other realtors. And one of the old guys in our office, he always said, all right, I got an offer from this lady. Oh, I hate doing that. I thought, well, if you get to know all these people, all these different realtors, who it's key. Our number one, here's a pop quiz for you, rookie. Who is our number one real customer? I just gave you a hint.
Ourselves.
Our number one, when we have a buyer, a listing, our number one customer are other realtors. And it's so important to get to know all these people. And the best way, and I'm teaching my guys in the office, Forrest Henson, my man, future president, I tell them, get to know, get involved with the board, committees, become a director. And people, you just build respect quick. And then when the president came up, Patty, I was her vice president, she goes, I don't want to be president. And Deb, my wife, said, you're going to do it. And man, let me tell you, being the vice president gives you, when you call people for showing, they answer the phone like, that's Will Gilliam, he's president of the board. Kind of, they freak out. I'm one of the coolest guys you'll ever meet. No.
I believe that.
I correct that.
Believe it.
The coolest guy you'll ever meet. At least in the Highland Lakes. I know there's some other cool people out there. Don't know you yet, but I hear But that really helps. It's connections, because when you call and ask for things, some agents will give you a little more insight because you're a cool guy and you're giving back. They see, hey man, you're on the board. Yeah, we're here for you.
So tell me, so you've been a realtor for 16 years?
It'll be 17 in June.
And you're a broker.
Yep.
Okay. So, and tell me about the first year numbers versus last year's numbers. What's the... Do you remember what's your first year?
Yeah.
How many closings, revenue?
Yeah, I think my first year was like maybe, I think it was 28,000.
In revenue?
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
commission?
So commission. Oh, maybe gross commission. Yeah.
That's good to know too, because for our new realtors that are struggling and feeling like, what's going on? Is this how it always is going to be for me? They want to know. I know for me, it was 10 months to have my first deal, and I had 2 deals in 2 months and made $50,000 in commission and almost $2 million in revenue. But it took 10 months to get there, and that was frustrating.
Okay, here's what I tell everybody. Real estate is a simple. It's the easiest job in the world, yet the hardest. It's a contact sport. Write this down, everybody. Contacts equal what? Contracts. It's contact sport. Contact sport. Contact sport. Yeah, write it down. Contacts equal contracts. And in 2018, I took a course in Austin, installation, ninja selling. And I know it sounds like, no, I'm not wearing a band and doing the old Mr.
Not the
Miyagi.
Ninja blender.
No, not the blender.
Okay.
That'll cut
Just
your
to be
finger
clear
right
to
off.
everybody. Okay.
It's all about contacts. Contact 10 people a day. 2 personal.
It's a numbers game.
It's a numbers game. Perfect. Numbers game. And I tell every agent that I ever come in contact with, there's just two requirements to work with Will Gilliam and the Lake Life team. Two. I want you to know more than others. What does that mean? I want you to take continuing education, something at the board,
right.
go, and know more than others and do what others won't do. Well, what is that? Hey man, these storms just came through. Did you go to the listing and see if their house is okay? Hey, there's a freeze coming. Are you going to go check out their pipes, crack some pipes? You got to know more than others. And part of that knowing more than others is the most important thing. We get our license, what does it say? Professional sales. And one of the first coaches I ever got, he says, are you an amateur or a pro? Well, I'm a pro. I'm a registered nurse. So of course, I have my license. And he goes, are you doing this, this, and this? I said, no. And he goes, you're an amateur. And I go, well, why? And he goes, pros train. How many realtors?
And pros have coaches too.
Exactly. Every good realtor, you hear me?
Every professional athlete has a coach and trainer. Yeah.
And some of these coaches, some of these athletes have coaches. One of my coaches out in California, he had a voice coach. He had a movement coach. He had a stage coach. He had all these coaches. I was like, really? It was just ridiculous. But, I've had a coach.
He was a realtor or an actor?
Yeah, he was a realtor for a while, and then he got into coaching.
Okay, there you go.
But he has a coach. Coaching is key. That changed. You know what? You asked. In 2009, I hired my first coach, paid $199 by referral only, Joe Stump. And I was like, man, I don't know if I can do that. And then
I've heard that.
And then
before.
in 2010, my wife said, man, you need to spend a little more money. I thought, $2,000? Where are we going to get $2,000? When you're new,
right?
It's like, and we're living off our 401k, God-given thing. That was a God thing. And I thought, $2,000? Game changer.
You got to invest in yourself.
You got to invest in yourself. When you get older, we all need to invest in ourselves. And most agents do not spend a dime on on coaching and all these other things. Hey, you want to come to and see this? Joe. What's his name? Ferry. Tom Ferry.
Tom Ferry.
Oh no. All right. See you in Portville. Too many agents don't train. So.
Well, it's
amateurs.
Leaders are readers. We know
yes,
that.
Absolutely.
Nowadays, podcasts are the primary thing that a lot of people get their information from. Like, if you're like me, you're driving a lot on the highways. Yep. You have windshield time. And Zig Ziglar used to call that windshield university. And or YouTube University, where you could listen to podcasts, maybe not watch as much while you're driving, but you learn so much and you intake so much. I'm an audio-visual learner, so I'm going to gravitate toward those type of platforms to ingest the knowledge I need to be better. And we were talking about contracts. Contracts reminds me of something that an old sales trainer told me. it's like 10 suspects to 3 prospects to 1 customer.
That's
Zig Ziglar, another Zig quote was, "Some will, some won't. So what? Move on." Next.
Exactly.
And so, running through those numbers and keeping up, and I think for many of us, we rely on, network people hearing about, the pastor telling you that someone's going to sell their house, or but, getting a referral. But when you're starting out, you have not established yourself or proven yourself, and I think being a part of the board also helps. With your tenure, your credibility, and everything.
It's all about, especially when you're brand new. If you're 22 and you're brand new and you look like Doogie Howser, you better demonstrate some value. That's all it is, about demonstrating value. And I'm impressed, bro, that you mentioned Zig Ziglar. You seem pretty young to know Zig. That was my
I saw him
first
speak.
book.
I mean, see you at the top, right?
See you at the top, man. I thought, man. And his what's his life saying? You remember that? Pop quiz for you, bro.
Well, there's a lot of different sayings, but you tell me. Share with me.
If you help enough people get what they want in life, you'll get what you want.
Yeah.
And man, when I read that, I thought, man, what does that mean? I mean, it's kind of like that. Remember Charlie Tuna, Starkist Tuna? You remember he used to be down the bottom, and he had a piano, and he had a chandelier on it, and he used to say, man, he was like, hey, Starkist, want me? And they pull it up. Sorry, Charlie.
Yeah.
Starkist wants tunas that taste good, not with good taste. And I thought, and then one day, about 10 years ago,
I never thought Charlie Tuna would come up in this.
No, I know, but Charlie Tuna, this has a point. So one day, I was watching How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and it was like, I get it. Charlie had good taste, but he didn't taste good. Big difference. I mean, like, wow, it blew me away. So what does that mean? I guess I'm kind of slow.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think what's important about continuing education and being a part of the board, but also doing your own education. Sometimes these CE classes don't provide the motivation or cheerleading that you need to get up out of bed and make that phone call or go to the office to do the things. Tell me about your brokerage. And once we move on from that, we're going to get into our topics about NAR settlement, around commissions, as well as a buyer's rep agreement. But briefly, tell us about your brokerage. How many agents do you have?
All right, so I joined EXP in 2000. Let's see, when was it? Been with them now almost 4 years. 2019.
Okay.
And so I was an independent. I bought that company, got my license, and then 4 years later, I got my broker's license, because I was like, I want to add agents, but I talked to guys in Horseshoe Bend, they're like, as long as you're kings in real estate, I'm not coming to you because you're too regional. So I got my broker's license, and I changed the name to Lake Life. Because why did I change it to Lake Life? I'm selling the what? Lake Lifestyle, Matthew.
That's right.
So that's why.
It's a good style.
Yeah, it's a great lifestyle. I mean, so people say, Will, how do you dress? I like this. I dressed in a button-down shirt because of this podcast today.
I appreciate that.
And because I
we all
remember
appreciate that.
when I was brand new, I was showing $1 million home out in Horseshoe Bay, and I was wearing my Dockers, Didn't have a tie on, but I wanted to. And I was sweating, man. It's diaphoresing. That's excessive sweat. That's a medical term. Write it down. Diaphrese. And the guy's like, man, you look miserable. And I go, I feel miserable. And he goes, if you're selling lake houses, you need to dress the part. I go, really? So if I was wearing shorts and flip-flops like you, that'd be cool? And he goes, I'd expect that. That's how I've been doing it ever since.
I've been wearing boots and jeans.
If you're wearing boots and jeans,
but
you got to be selling ranches, or working in Bandera. Out here, I'm selling primary lake and golf. Yep. You see many golfers in the summertime wearing pants? No. So anyway, so at our office,
I need to get a spray tan for wear shorts.
Yeah, there's some good stuff. So what was the question about what do we do at our office?
So how many agents do you have currently?
So with EXP, I think I have 79 agents. It's
wow. Okay.
I probably have
So it's like your team? They call it a team or a group?
The office called Lake Life Team.
Okay.
But a lot of my team broke off because EXP, very similar to KW business model. They want you to brand yourself. KW, you can be Will Gilliam, blah, 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 brokered by KW or Keller Williams. So EXP is the same way. So I have a lot of people that broke off and have their own building and their own office and all that. In EXP, you don't need an office. But so I have probably 79, I believe, right now.
How did it change from when you became an independent contributor
this is good.
to a leader or manager of people?
So when I had 18 agents before I joined EXP, I mean, I was never a micromanager, but I had to make sure They learned. They knew more than others and did what others wouldn't do. If they didn't do that, they're out. And so I had 18 people, and that's kind of, I never micromanaged, but I was hands-on. And then when I saw the model for EXP, I thought, oh, this is going to free up Deb. She's not going to have to handhold. And EXP has 5 brokers for Texas. So when we joined EXP in 2019, when people call me, this was the fun part, Josh. You're going to love this. Hey, Will, I need your help. And I go, hey, man, call your broker. No, well, you are a broker. No. Call, you have 1 of 5. I always help any and all 79. I get calls from them all the time. So that's been it's kind of nice to relinquish that responsibility. But first 4 years, I learned, OJT, I learned more in 4 years. And Julia Perkins, you said this, you learn more in 4 years than most agents. It takes 30. And so EXP has been a kind of relaxing in a sense, but yet we're still grinding. We're still pumping it out. Contacts equal what?
Contracts.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you mentioned that about the NAR settlement. One of the things we talked about at the beginning of this podcast is we were going to address a few issues within that settlement, one being commissions and one being buyer's rep agreements. Now, as full disclosure and as our own disclosure, there's many topics and many articles written about this subject, and you can find those online. You can just do a Google search, NAR settlement, and find out exactly what's going on if you're not aware of the National Association of Realtors and all that transpired in the last year or so. That being said, we're going to talk about our experiences.
Right.
So, for example, my hairdresser about 2 months ago said, hey, I heard that commissions are changing and realtors won't get paid as much. And my response was, tell me what you have heard. And so she said, well, you're not going to get paid 6% anymore. And I said, well, tell me what you mean by that. And so she explained, and she was still cutting my hair and doing all the things. So the way I responded is commissions have always been negotiable. And certain brokers, if it's transaction under $100,000, will charge more. Because, first of all, they don't want to be busy with smaller transactions because they may focus on lake properties that are, $750,000, $2 million, $5 million, and so they don't want to do lots anymore. So they'll increase their percentage so that they don't have as many of those transactions. Tell me, Will, how you would handle a question like that, or if you've had any similar experiences and what your response has been.
That's a great question, and this whole settlement, it's kind of like a lot of frivolous lawsuits, in my opinion. The 6% has been and always will be negotiable. I tell everybody in real estate, everything is negotiable. Every aspect of it. Title, who's paying title? Who's paying home warranty? Who's paying for this? All negotiable. And so I remember a friend of mine, he has a business in Kingsland. He said, hey man, I just heard you guys aren't going to get paid anymore. And I said, tell me more. And you tell me some more, and I go, tell me more. So that's my comeback for it. Like you just
answer a question with a question.
Yeah, questions are the answer. So I said, tell me more, and I said, here's what I know. It's always been negotiable.
So when people say, for those that may be consumers out there that are not in the industry every day like we are, typically when you have a real estate transaction, there's a buyer's agent and there's a seller's agent, and each get a commission.
Right.
And so just like when you were selling pharmaceuticals, you would get a commission. Now, when I sold technology, I would get a commission when I sold a server or storage or networking or software.
Right.
And so in any sales environment, there's always commission. Well, typically, we have seen throughout the years that within who pays the commission. I mean, that's one of the questions within this whole settlement. And historically, it's been the seller pays the commission for the buyer's agent and the seller's agent.
Right.
And that's always been negotiable. We've seen folks that have been good clients to brokers or realtors, and they've got a big lake house. Mm-hmm. It's a high value lake house or big ranch, and you'll see a 4%. So that's 2% goes to the seller, 2% goes to the buyer's agent. Mm-hmm. So we've seen that. It's always been negotiable. And I think the fear, the uncertainty, the doubt, what we call FUD in sales that people like to promulgate is, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? How's this going to change the market? Are realtors jumping ship? What's going on? How is this going to affect our sellers and the buyers? Are buyers going to now have to pay the buyer's agent that represents them? Or is the seller still going to be paying the buyer's agent commission? So tell me, what do you think is going to change or not change? And how are you communicating to your agents how to respond?
So we've done some training. I mean, the agents that'll show up, the pros, you know who you are. So, with all these questions being asked, a lot of people there's a lot of fake news. I'm going to use that, fake news. And so I've told all my agents, remember what I told you, 2 things you got to do work with me. No more than others. Do what others won't do. And I've talked to a lot of agents, and I always keep my finger on the pulse of these agents in this crazy market that we're experiencing now. And a lot of these agents, they've never talked about a buyer's rep agreement. And as we all know, when we have
Tell us what that is.
A buyer's rep agreement says, all right, you want to work with me? And I have a perfect example. 2 months ago, this lady called me, and she goes, hey, I want to see this house. And I asked her, hey, a qualifier, hey, you've been pre-approved, all that. Yeah. So I go show the house, and then she calls me and says, hey, I was going to go see this house, but I've talked to the other agent, and he's going to show it to me. I go, ooh, well, first thing I always ask when a buyer calls me, what's the question? Are you working with an agent? She said no. She said no, not no, meaning you're lying. And so I just read the riot act because this other agent called me and said, hey, this lady you want to make an appointment with is making an appointment with me. She's either mine or yours. So I call her and I say, hey, you work with me or are you working with him? I want you. Buyer's rep agreement. I mean, in our zip forms, there's a buyer's rep agreement. And so I have a buyer's rep. But a lot of agents, what I've learned, and I've talked to a lot of agents, I don't know if I could ask them. Because here's the question.
Because they're scared.
They're scared to say, hey, I don't know what they're going to pay me. Are you willing to pay me if they won't? And the buyer's like, pay you how much? And that's where the agent is like, I'm not going to ask for 3%. Don't say 3%. Tell them how much. Because a lot of the sellers will say, hey, will you cut your commission to 2%? I want to hear the number. Because 2% is easy. Oh, so you want me to cut my commission, like $1.5 million. You want me to cut my commission $18,000. So even if it's $100,000, you want me to cut off $1,500. So when they hear the number, they're like, oh yeah, that's a lot. And I've had some service, like plumbers. They come to your house, they're going to charge you $79 to show up, and then they're going to charge you. And they're like, hey, we sell my house, we do it for 1%. Oh, you want me to sell it for $3,500 less? You came to my house and you charged me full service. Anyway.
So do you pivot and talk about the value you bring
to the table? Key. The whole NAR thing, what I love about it, I love it. I welcome it because I'm all about training and pros. I love working with pros. And so a lot of these agents, I've talked to them, they're like, I don't think I could ask a buyer to pay me. Then you're not going to last long. And so
it's less about asking them to sign a buyer's rep agreement and be committed to you. It's more about asking them to pay you if the seller doesn't. Okay.
Because sellers, they're still hearing all this NAR. We don't have to pay realtors anymore. You've always had to pay realtors. And it's always been negotiated. We always had this one number out there that everybody goes back to. It's always been negotiated. I even taken listings, $2 million, $3 million, say, yeah, I'll cut my commission. Sure. We're going to always give the buyer's agent a little more because if they don't have it, if they don't see this particular number, they're not going to show your house. They can't do that. They do.
And that's another topic that now in MLS we are not going to be able to show the commission paid. However, getting back to what you were saying regarding signing the buyer's rep and the fears around asking for payment, do you because just my personal experience, my first year and a half, my broker didn't require me to do that, so I didn't do that.
Right.
If I met somebody to open house, I didn't have them sign a buyer's rep. I don't think it was necessary fear. It was Well, there's a little bit of fear. I'm saying no. I want to keep my options open. It's like somebody's out there in the dating pool, right? They don't want to be exclusive with anybody. So if you don't use the word exclusive, then I can date as many people as I want at the same time, which can be really expensive, y'all. I wouldn't recommend that. Okay,
And
you know, it can also be that situation where people go, I met this realtor at open house. I like this person, but then I met another realtor. I like that person too, and so they try to work both sides, and they don't want to commit to either one.
Right.
And sometimes consumers can be that way in any industry.
Right.
Would you agree?
I agree. And you know why? Their perceived, their perception of us is we're what are we? A below or above or below a lawyer? They don't see us as valuable. And so we have to, I love this because now we have to demonstrate our value. And there's some agents that have no value. They're complete and total. There's no value.
Tell me how do you explain value to a buyer?
That's a great question. I let them know about buyer. I'm telling them what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this experience with you. Our buying experience, your buying experience is going to be so outrageous, over the top 5-star experience that you're going to feel overwhelmed. That, man, you're going to love what Will did, and you're going to feel so comfortable telling all your friends about it. Is that cool? They're like, wow, nobody's ever told me that. Set the expectation up front. I'm going to make this experience so overwhelming. 5-star. I'm asking for referral, but I'm not using the R word. That you will feel comfortable telling your friends, family, neighbors. And they're like, so I demonstrate that value. So we have to demonstrate what it does. NAR has just made us demonstrate, show me your value. Because you know they can just pick up the phone and they're going to call somebody like, I don't know what I get. Well, when they get me right off the bat, I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to dialogue. Because why? I'm a pro. I've trained. I know what to say. And they're going to feel like, I'm overwhelmed already because you just told me stuff I've never. People get in the car. They knock on your door. They come into your office. Hey, I want to go see this property. Boom, get up. What is that? Pop-Tart realtor. Don't be a Pop-Tart realtor.
Well, and you made the comment about attorneys, and don't you all believe and know that attorneys make you sign documentation and agreements with
all
them?
The time.
You know, especially if you put them on retainer and you're paying them. We're not even asking for a retainer.
No.
We're asking that we're exclusive to you for a certain period of time, and that we'll get paid a certain amount if the other seller does not pay the buyer agent. And I think that is fair and equitable, and because we are professionals. We have to go through a series of classes, training, and tests, and state tests, and national tests, and do continuing education. Do you have to have an undergraduate degree or master's degree to be a realtor? No, we talked about this. You can have a GED. You don't even have to have a high school diploma to be a realtor. However, we are professionals in that we train and we get the experience. And now there are some that they're going halfway, you know, the Pop-Tart. You know, we don't want to be that. We want to establish the value. And one of the things that I love are these real estate memes. Have you seen these?
Yeah.
There's some pretty fun ones out there.
Another
if you get bored and you want to see some funny reels, go to YouTube and watch the realtor highlights of Phil Dunphy from Modern Family TV show. It's pretty stinking hilarious.
We need to laugh.
Unfortunately, many people put us in a meme and they don't see our value. And I think so. It's so important. Like what you said, here's a list. We're going to go through everything that I do to make sure that you know exactly the value I bring to this, not only a transaction, because hopefully it's not just one transaction.
Right.
It's a lifetime of, you're my client for life.
Right. And, you know, Joe Stump said, hey, this is Will Gilliam. You're a friend in the real estate for life. And I just didn't like that. I mean, it's because it's like, there's some transactions I've done. It's like, don't call me back. We're done. I'm done. And you know what I'm talking about. We all have those people. But every person, every client, every transaction that we have, they're good for 5.7 referrals, at least, minimum. And within a 30-year span, they can put over $150,000 in your pocket if you stay in contact and you stay...
not only referrals, but their own transactions.
Yes, provide value. I mean, this job You just
touches. You got to
touches. You got to touch. You know what they say. So some people say, "Hey, I have 33 touches a month. I mean, a year." You know, it's like just what REO stands for? Real estate owned. Real estate owned. REO. It also stands for real estate orphan. Once the deal's done, they moved on. So
Tom Ferry says, "Don't ever say past clients. They're your clients.
They're your clients." But once the deal's done, they become real estate orphans. So I look at some of these properties. I thought, man, I missed that listing. So I keep an eye on it, and it's like, oh, it sold. So like 6 months later, I might drop an email, say, hey, or a card, hey, welcome to the lake, blah 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 blah. And they're like, hey man, it's great. And then like 3 months later, I'll send them another card. Hey, if you need anything, blah blah blah. And they're like, man, I've got 2 pieces of something from the stranger. Haven't heard squat from my realtor,
who just helped me buy the house.
Yeah. Because why? Contacts equal what?
Contracts.
Yeah, that's right. All right, go ahead. Next question. Hit me with your best shot. What else?
So just a scenario. Buyer calls your office. Found this house online. I'd like to go see it tomorrow. And they also need to sell their house. So but they can't buy a new one until they sell their house. Do you send a buyer's rep through like a DocuSign, or do you try to meet with them at your office first as a buyer's rep appointment, and before you agree to show them the property? What's your process look like? Especially when they have a sense of urgency. That's like, we got to see this today because we're only in town, at the lake this weekend, Memorial Day weekend.
Especially at the lake, they're just driving through. They're looking for idiots. They're going to be their tour guide. So we had that during COVID. We called that buy sell. They have to buy, they have to sell, and that was a tough one because if they list their house, it's going to be gone in a couple of days, and so they have to. It's just ugly. And so first thing I say is, "Hey, are you working with a realtor?" No. All right. Have you talked? You're going to buy something, or have you talked to a lender? No. So you're not pre-qualified? No. But I blah 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 blah. It's like, I need to work with somebody that I know is qualified. So you have to sell your house. Have you talked to a realtor there? Well, that means no. Or yeah, that means no.
You mean where they currently live?
They want to buy something, but they have to sell something.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they say, well, we're talking to a realtor. We're getting ready to sell. Okay, that's good, but I will not go and write a contingency on a property that's not even for sale.
So you're not even getting to the buyer's rep agreement at that point?
Not even on the radar. I mean,
you're qualifying the
questions are what? The answer. So you got it. But most realtors are like, oh, I got a buyer, Oh, sure, I can show you that. And they get in the car and they're like, oh, this guy's an idiot. He's just going to take us around Lake LBJ. They're not selling anything.
And I think as a new agent, sometimes we don't want to be perceived as desperate.
Right.
And yet we are.
Pop-Tart. They walk through the door.
Because you want to be able to have deals and transact. And you talked about at the beginning you were living off your 401k.
Mm-hmm.
My background is I've got a lot of side hustles. Many of y'all know that I play music. Sometimes I do private driving. I lead worship at a church. I do a lot of different things to supplement between deals because
that's just smart.
We got to stay busy. You meet people. You're out and about in the community, and everybody has their own journey and their own way of getting there. And so when you have somebody that calls, because this happened to me recently, they want to go see a property and you make them sign a buyer's rep agreement because you make it serious for them. Like, I like the fact that you mentioned tour guide because a lot of times they expect you to spend the whole day with them and be dedicated to them. I had this happen to me recently, and they said that I was too busy for them. Because I was doing an open house, I gave them windows of opportunity to look at houses. We want someone that can spend the whole day with us. Sorry, I can't commit to that. Now, if I don't have anything going on, then possibly I could spend a majority of the day. But I don't want to be your professional tour guide. I want to be your professional realtor.
Right.
And so it's hard sometimes to differentiate and have discernment. You've been doing this long enough where you have the tenure and the experience, and when people are BSing you, and you can sniff that out.
Right.
And you ask those tough questions because you're a professional.
Right.
And I think so many times people want to take advantage of realtors thinking, oh, they're not that bright, they don't have a college degree, or whatever it is.
Whatever.
And you've just explained that that's the reason why you ask those qualifying questions. The buyer's rep, you try to make sure they understand that they have got to sell their property first. So we're wrapping up here. We've talked and gone through a lot today, but just to recap, there's a lot of information out there on the NAR settlement. You can go and research yourself. Our goal today was not necessarily to dive into the weeds of all the legal mumble jumbo about the settlement. It's just to educate, talk through this like we were just talking, having coffee or a drink at a bar, just trying to understand it as colleagues, how we can help and encourage one another. And that's our goal here, is to help educate, innovate, inspire you, help to relate to you as a realtor and answer questions. We don't have all the answers, but remember what we said, the
Questions are the answers.
questions are the answers.
You don't know? Ask a question.
Any final thoughts on the state of the real estate industry now, the board, the settlement that you want to talk about?
You know, yes, I think I'm 65. I'm moving toward the golden years, and so you better have some gold because you can get old. You spend a lot of gold on, aches and pains and stuff. But it's kind of exciting with this NAR thing. It's kind of revived me in a sense because it's like this is going to be a weed out factor, and we've heard that before in the past. But I talked to a lot of agents, and they're like, "Man, I just can't ask." I mean, so I'm excited about. Yeah, now right now. We're in a sucky market, man. If you say it's great, you're lying. Yes, it's great in a particular price range, but all in all, it's kind of different. Election year, there's just some crazy things. Good God, interest rates. Can I give one last point?
Sure.
$320,000, $320,000 home. Now what your mortgage is going to be like $2,600 and above. And back in the day when we were hovering around the 2 and the 3s. I remember KCM, Keeping Current Matters, talked about for every 1% increase, you lose buying power of 100,000. So it just, now we're at 7, 6.5, 7.5. People can't afford, a $320,000 home. And in most markets, $300,000 home doesn't buy you a nice home. It's a home by definition. Anyway, I'm excited about what's going on. I think the weed out factor, I'm excited of people meeting like you guys and some of the people that are pros. What is a pro? They train. So, yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be good.
Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you for listening and being part of this podcast. First ever podcast.
Nice.
Waves podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, share this content with people that you know in the industry, out of the industry. We want to make this a fun time of learning, of education, of inspiring, motivating. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about our heroes and what it takes to be successful, not just in real estate, but in every industry in life. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you to the board and everyone that allowed us the privilege of hosting this podcast today. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Peace.